hearing, that's all. It's disorganised by incomplete.
Were you taken off the front line then, presumably?
When war was announced in 1914, many civilians signed up as soldiers and went to war, believing it would be over by Christmas. But the war was to drag on for 4 long years. We're here in the World War I trench display at the Museum of Lancashire, and it shows so well some of the horrors of the trench warfare. In the First World War, nearly 1 million soldiers were killed. The trenches were only intended to be used temporarily, but people had to live in them for years, and the conditions were appalling. The mud and the decaying bodies around them from wounded comrades. People at home didn't know the full horrors of the war, whether their loved ones were being shot by snipers when they poked their heads over the trenches, or that they were mown down by machine guns as they went from their trench into no man's land to attack the enemy. A comrade that you think might have been sleeping could actually have been shot and was dead. Wilfred Owen was an officer in the Manchester Regiment, the 2nd Manchester Regiment. I created this sculpture at the Museum of Lancashire as part of an art residency. Wilfred Owen wrote many of the greatest poems of the First World War, Dulce Decorum Est and Anthem for Doomed Youth. He died a week before the end of the war, and a letter was delivered to his mother on Armistice Day announcing his tragic death. Of Wilfred Owen's poems, the one I want to read is a little known one called As Bronze May Be Much Beautified. It's an unfinished poem, but reflects some views about sculpture and also about the men who died who haven't been commemorated in sculpture, which is really part of the essence of Owen's work, to speak for the men who had no voice and let people know what they suffered in the First World War. As bronze may be much beautified by lying in the dark damp soil, so men who fade in dust of warfare fade, fairer, and sorrow blooms their soul. Like pearls which noble women wear, and tarnishing a while confide, unto the old salt sea to feed, many return more lustrous than they were. But what of them buried profound, buried where we can no more find, who lie dark forever under abysmal war? Poetry in the 19th and early 20th century had been romantic, expressing the wonders of nature and the sublime greatness of the sort of horror of natural wonders. But now mankind was making its own horrific, sublime, natural terrors, and so the whole project of poetry was collapsing. It was poets like Wilfred Owen that marked the end of Romantic and Georgian poetry by expressing the horrors of war, the sublime that mankind had brought upon itself.